Welcome everyone. Welcome to Silver Lining for Learning, episode 236, Beyond Bricks, Hyper-Personalized Pathways for Gen Z Learners. I'm your co-host, Lydia Cao from University of Toronto, and joining me today, we have our fellow co-hosts, Professor Chris Dede from Harvard University, Professor Kurt Bunk from Indiana University, and Professor Yung Zhao from University of Melbourne and University of Kansas. So before we delve into the episode, I want our listener to picture this. What if we stop forcing teenagers into rigid classroom boxes and instead build their entire learning experience around who they are and what they dream of becoming? And that's exactly what's happening in Beyond 8 School in Bengaluru and Chennai in India. So our guests today are Naveen Mahesh, Raaji Naveen, and Tara Srinivasan from Beyond 8 School, a learner-determined high school ecosystem. So today we'll discover how they're using everything from AI-driven scheduling to dream mapping sessions to mentoring in a learner pods, one-to-one mentoring in a learner pods of 50 students to help Gen Z learners design the futures they are actually excited about. So Naveen and Raaji are co-founders of Beyond 8, who spent over 25 years reimagining what education can be. And very importantly, we'll also hear from Tara, one of their first learners at Beyond 8, who will share her firsthand experience of learning in such a hyper-personalized environment. And also a huge shout out to our colleague and friend, Carl Duff, for connecting us with these visionary educators. And Beyond 8 is also achieving something incredible. 90% of their graduates are getting into their first choice of universities. And perhaps more importantly, they are reporting they are feeling confidence in navigating real life. So if you ever wondered about whether there's a better way to prepare young people for the certain future we are currently living in, this conversation is for you. So let's dive in. So before we start, Naveen, Raaji, and Tara, would you mind take turns to introduce who you are to our audience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Chris, Kurt, Young. I'm Naveen. I'm the managing trustee of a school besides Beyond 8. It's called HLC International School. It's India's first Ashoka Changemaker school. It's 31 years old today. My work is in large part advising education startups. Besides working in these two organizations, advising education startups on learner agency and serving as a strategist on boards of Nalanda Way, which serves over 10 million kids going to government schools in India. Youth for Conservation Action Network, which tries to build educators for environmental education and conservation. I'm also on the board of a rehabilitation association, which provides education for children coming from families affected by leprosy. I'm a social scholar from the Leadership Consortium run by Harvard professor Francis Fry. Those are some things. Let me pass the baton on to Raaji. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia, for the introduction, and lovely to be here today on Silver Lining Podcast. Lovely to be in the presence of wonderful people, Chris, Kurt, and Young. So I would call myself a social entrepreneur, a dreamer, dreaming that there is hope in this world for our children to be, where we can actually get them out of the shackles of this completely outdated educational system. I call myself as a person who focuses on vision to strategy to execution for transformative impact. I am a champion of learner-determined education. I'm also an ambassador for the Certificate of Advanced Educational Leadership course at Harvard. I've also been recognized as the Purple Squirrel in Professor David Shore's class in Business Strategic, Beyond Strategic Planning in Harvard last year. I also serve as the trustee at HLC International School based out of Chennai that Naveen is also part of. Lovely to be here.
Tara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tara, and I was the first learner in Beyond 8, I think. And I think as I was a 12-year-old girl when I joined, and I wanted to be a musician. I think that was my passion, and I could not do it with normal schooling. It was simply not possible. And I think this really opened a lot of doors for me because I personally felt like I could do everything and still manage my studies. And I think that was one of the game changers for me. And that way, I feel like this environment was kind of the best for me. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, everyone. I just have a sense we need to invite you back already. The scope of your work is also beyond 8. So we definitely need to invite you back to speak about other initiatives. So my first question is to trace kind of the origin of Beyond 8. So what are some pain points in mainstream Indian schooling that have led you to build Beyond 8?
Raaji, you want to take this one? Raaji?
So, yes, are you able to hear me?
Maybe I'll take this one since she's probably having a weak connection. Well, I think it began with just looking at so much unhappiness and disenthrallment with school education system and so many children. And it wasn't actually just children even, right? But it was also from teachers, parents, even colleagues, colleges and employees, employers. Everyone we spoke to seemed to be sort of discontent with what school education was producing in some sense. But somehow, strangely, they were very accepting of that status quo yet, right? Even though it wasn't working. System wasn't doing such a great job of focusing on what was needed and useful. As a systems thinker, Russell Lakoff would say, doing rightly all the wrong things, you'll only get a wronger outcome, right? So something along those lines, prioritizing inputs like syllabus completion and exam prep rather than actual impact or relevance to what they did. So at HLC, the school that Raaji and I referred to, which became our social incubator for all of our ideas on that we wanted to experiment with in education. Through social entrepreneurship projects, through AI-enabled learning, integrity, developing integrity through sports or public problem solving. These weren't just side projects for us. We sort of tried to redraw the contours of what an education was meant to achieve. They were early, in the early days itself, we started getting close to a more human-centered and future-proof, future-ready approach to education. What really moved us, though, were the voices of our own alumni. Each of them would come back to us and say, I wish you taught me financial literacy. I wish you taught me, you told me that people will speak one thing and do something quite the opposite, right? And the world outside of school education was brutally different from what we were putting together. So that listening to their voices really was very useful, and we took a very first principles approach. What is the problem we are trying to solve? It made us realize something simple but powerful, that education isn't about traditional subjects or fancy buildings. School education is often in private education, especially in these parts of the world. The first thing you look for in a school is the size of the school. It's the size of the buildings, the infrastructure, the sports facilities, right? But the subject was the learner for us. Now, the topic was the learner. We were trying to understand the human being in front of us, what got their hearts racing, right? And that's, to us, the most important thing. You probably are familiar with the Choluteca Bridge, right? Usually referred to in education circles, how a fantastic bridge that'll last 100 years has been built, except the water is no more flowing under it, right? The water has turned course, but the bridge stands strong, starting from nowhere, leading to nowhere, right? And that's the real work, to see the learner understand the learners in front of us and build the learning around them, rather than build a learning system and retrofit the learners into that. It's never been about better classrooms or better infrastructure. Like I said, it's about getting beyond bricks and focusing on the learner. That shift from systems to stories, from structures to humans, I think is really what gave birth to Beyond 8 for us. I hope that sort of gives you in a nutshell the background of our work.
There are so many things you said really resonated with me. I'm sure it resonated with all of the other co-hosts. I just want to give Raaji a chance to add anything that you'd like to.
I think Naveen called it out, and it did take us a while. We were like all other entrepreneurs or educational philosophers, we were trying to think about what is our philosophy. Right? We were trying to think, oh, what should education have? Should it have social entrepreneurship? Should it have public problem solving? Oh, that's missing from education. This is missing from education. But then there was this shift that happened, that finally we are again trying to say that who are with us, we are trying to make them fit into our philosophy. And that's where we realized that no, we need to actually fit into the learner's philosophy, and listening to the learner's voice almost sort of became like a mantra for us, and that learner determined education. And after which everything, systems thinker Russell Ackoff will talk about problem dissolution. So when you dissolve the problem, you are actually getting your vision right, your mission right, your philosophy right, and everything sort of falls into place. So our philosophy was the learner, and it just made all our programs, our offerings very easy to be able to communicate it to the learners, to the parents, as well as the facilitators and the team members. So it was a sigh of relief when we narrowed down to that point.
I just want to ask Tara before I go to Chris. And Tara, what is like to step into such a school that's built around you rather than you try to fit you into that school building?
Actually, it's a little hard at first, because you're in a normal school from when you're like a baby till you're, let's say, 8th grade. You're in a normal school where there are 40 students in a class, 250 students in a grade, and then there's just one teacher that is teaching you one subject, and that one teacher is teaching you for 40 students. So you can't really expect that a 1 hour class you wouldn't be given the chance to ask any doubts that you had, or you wouldn't be given the chance to even raise your hand, for that matter. Usually if they ask you a question and you raise your hand, the first 20 people may be visible and they'll pick that person, but the last 20 in the back would not be visible. So you're used to not having attention around you. So when you come from that sort of a space to this sort of a space, you realize that there is one teacher for 6 or 7 students and 1 hour. So it's the same timing, but for 7 students and for one teacher. So that way, I think it also gives us more opportunity to wonder and to also ask doubts and to get that response that we wanted in the first place. At first, it gets a little confusing. Oh my God, that they're actually answering. But then they do. And I think that's what really helped all of us personally, because when you don't get your doubts answered, you don't really think to question. And when you don't think to question, it doesn't really end up working out in your favor. So yeah, it was an awesome environment.
Thank you, Tara. Chris has a question.
So let me begin by saying that I really like that you're starting with students' passions. So many people claim that they're doing personalization who are really just doing adaptation. So, we say, oh, we personalize. If the student gets the wrong answer, we give them something easier. And if they get the right answer, we give them something harder. Well, that that may be some small part of personalization, but I think all of us agree that personalization is fundamentally about voice and choice. And starting with the passion makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I and others have argued is that in post-secondary education, instead of people having majors, they should declare a passion. And then you take a suite of courses that help you to find your passion. My younger daughter, who is from India, we adopted her from India, had to declare a major in her college, and she declared mechanical engineering and is happily working as a mechanical engineer. But there were a lot of courses she would have liked to have taken to help her with her passion about using engineering as a lever for globally improving conditions for marginalized people. And that wasn't an option, right? It's all about the discipline. It's not about the learner. So higher education has a lot to learn from models like yours. So let me ask about a kind of another misconception about personalization that I hear, which is that personalization is individualization, and that somehow the true model of personalization is sort of the Benjamin Bloom. You've got this tutor, and the tutor, you know, is tailored to everything about you. But we know that a lot of learning takes place in collaborative and team settings where you're learning from somebody who deliberately is not like you. You can learn a lot more from people who are different than you than people who are similar to you. And I'm wondering, as to what extent collaborative learning or some other term that you would use is part of your model, and how the personalization works in the collaboration.
Raaji, since you're connected, why did you try taking this one?
Sure. Actually, if we try to think about the program design, right, and we can solve it if we think it through well. There are things in which the learner requires personalization. There are aspects in which the learner will benefit from learning from peers and learning from teams. And there are aspects in which the family also has to be a part of it, and not just the learner and the school, right? So when we talk about mentoring, when we talk about internships, those are all highly personalized because they are driven from the learner's passion. If Tara wants to do an internship in music, 49 others may not want to do that internship, but it's personalized according to Tara's interests, right? Whereas when she takes a grade 11 class in physics or grade 12 class in chemistry, she is going to be learning with her peers where they are going to, track that academics together. They may even have an alumni come in as a guest lecturer talking about how they solved this same problem in a different way. So all those interactions happen in that, in those group settings. Apart from which, when we talk about dream mapping, right, where we are having those personalized conversations with the learner, we also involve the family, because it's not just the learner and beyond it. It's the family that is going to stay with the learner through the course of their lives. So dream mapping sort of brings beyond it the family and the learner together, and it's almost like the universe is listening. You put out your dreams and your aspirations, your strengths and stretches out into the universe, and then your pathway is sort of you navigate that journey. And it might change in 6 months. You may say, I don't want this, I don't want that, but at least you started somewhere from where you thought you want something. You sought that learning yourself, and then all those course corrections happen. So if we design the program in such a way that we know where we are going to be personalizing, where we are going to take the power of the group, and where we will give autonomy and choice and all of that, then it becomes a little simpler to be able to work on these different aspects.
I wonder if I can add to that, Chris. We actually we try to make this promise to the learners and to ourselves. First is, of course, who's this human in front of us, and how can we truly cater to what they're seeking? But we're also always thinking about why do learners come to a learning ecosystem, whether it's a school or a learning initiative, or, centers for learning. They come actually just for having fun, meeting their friends, and continuing yesterday's conversations. They're not rare are the kids who come there saying, I want to learn physics today and chemistry tomorrow and mathematics. There are a few kids like that, but the majority of the kids are not coming in for all of that. They're coming in to have fun, first of all. So the thing we keep in mind is, okay, in this world that we live in, where all learners are, and families are expecting learners to go on to college, there is a requirement of going to college, but how can we think of every opportunity to increase fun, increase enrichment over and learning over education? I mean, I'm distinguishing education from learning, as education is all focused more on the process. Learning is focused on actually just being curious, right? And how can it be collaborative in nature? In schools, kids are always told how to outpace the others in their own friends groups, whereas we're thinking about how do we lift all learners up. So that mindset itself is a little bit different. I hope that answers your question.
So this is very exciting, and I've been actually writing and conducting research and doing experiments about personalization in different countries, And for example, in China, we've been working with a huge school that's probably like over 10,000 students, and for the last 8 years. And so our view of personalization is really actually allow students to pursue whatever they like. And we've tried that in Australia, in Victoria and New South Wales, in various places. So one of the things, when I was looking at your website, you want your students to still personalize what you prescribed for them, right? You could do the Cambridge or NOIS, or do you actually allow students to say, today with AI, with other online learning resources, with people, I could really, for example, I don't mean subjects, because school subjects sometimes are distorted knowledge anyway. For example, if I want to seriously do something about nuclear physics, which is not necessarily enough could they just do that, or do they have to fit in your existing curriculum? Can it go beyond the prescription?
Maybe both of us will take shots at that question, Young. What I would say is, in school education, by and large, when it's scaled and when there's lots and lots of learners like the kind that Tara was talking about, it's very impersonal. I think impersonal is almost entirely going to be replaced by AI. If anything, we must double down on hyper-personalized learning, because fundamentally we're social creatures. We need to teach children about collaboration, about empathy, about authenticity, about logic, right? And these are the things that will perhaps have a longer life than particular skills, vocational skills or academic skills, I think. So what we do try to do is make sure that all of our learning programs build in a lot of human touch, and keep that human as the front and center for all our reference points. We don't want to think that do we have a system into which we can retrofit? So if a child is interested in a particular subject, Tara herself was interested in music. Now, a typical school say, oh, we have a music teacher. But what if she wants to learn music from A.R. Rahman, who's a Oscar winner in music, right? And he happens to live in the same city. Now, any music teacher I can bring to the school will be no match to the music teacher who's already available to teach Tara very well. So we'd rather she go and focus music with this great musician who's available in the very same city, and we focus on how can we build the education that she still fundamentally will enjoy and go forward into what part of that education can she take forward into undergraduate education. So we're not trying to put together the music teacher or the astrophysics teacher or the journalist in front of them. What we do is we give them internship opportunities to work with people in the industries that they are interested in, work with, have expert interactions with people that are known to be experts in those domains. But we focus on our core competency and let children find capacities and strengths from more people in the
Naveen, I think you were cut off for like 30 seconds. Would you mind repeat what you just said?
Oh, I'm so sorry. All I was saying was we try to not focus on what we can do for the learners, and we let the learners find people that can really teach them at the highest level around their interests, who happen to be in the city, sometimes even in other cities, maybe over Zoom. There are kids, for instance, the problem becomes easy to understand if I give you a very obvious problem. Let's say if there's a kid who wants to learn formula driving. We do have a learner who's pursuing formula driving. Can a school teach it? I don't think so, right? Just because, schools typically do things based on adjacency. It's adjacent to what we do. Oh, a child needs food. They're spending 8 hours, 7 hours with us. Maybe we should serve food. A child needs physical education. They're here for 7 hours. Maybe we'll put a physical instructor in place. You can do that for a few things, but you can't do it at the moment when children are saying, I actually want to pursue this at the highest level. I just don't want to play for playing for fun's sake. I want to play at the highest level. I want to play tennis. I want to be a journalist. I want to be a scientist. I don't know what. Each child is actually having a different dream. So we try to do the part that we can do, which is scheduling around their interests, not accommodating children's interests or support or just putting up with it, but actually enabling their interest by saying, we'll get out of your way so that you can actually go and pursue those things. All timings can work around your interest. Raaji, you want to add to it? I hope I was audible this time.
Yeah, Naveen. And what I would also like to add is when children coming, especially in the context of India, when children come into a grade 9, 10, 11, or 12, they generally are looking for college afterwards. In general, of course, there are children looking for gap years. There are children who may even want to transition to work based on their skill sets. But more often than not, they need their next step is a college education, where they need to be able to have a curriculum which is recognized by the universities, and they need to qualify for that. That becomes our base criteria, where we say that we are offering you multiple subjects in these two curricula. Based on your interest, you can choose so that your next step is secure. But that's just the base. After which we build on their interests, we schedule for those internships, we schedule for those expert interactions. The mentor is working with you for your well-being. So sort of, the academic choices become a base level on which you build on top, so that you are also a steward of the promises that you're making to the families that are onboarding with you. We might say we are not a school. We are thankful that, we are a Cambridge associate. Even without being a school in the space of India, we are able to do that. But at the same time, to be stewards of the trust that parents place on us, that facilitators are placing on us, we take that path where they complete that curricular requirements at the level that they wish to, not at a level that we set for them. After which we look at, of course, parallelly, we look at all their interests and passions, so that when they go to the next step, they are ever so confident of what they wish to do.
I wonder if we can bring in Tara to speak a little bit about these internships. And I really admire when your work in terms of having students to pursue things at the highest level, not like, some kind of, like a school level of this is what you do, but how can we help our learners to pursue these things authentically at the highest level? I wonder if Tara can shed light on that aspect.
Yeah, so actually, I think personally, I wanted to just confirm that the question was regarding internships that we are offered and getting to do, or is it about the expert interactions that we wanted? I just wanted to know if
You can talk about both, Tara.
okay. So the internships actually they let you pick what you want to do first. So I think personally when you go and you say that I want to do a couple of internships, the first step would ideally be that you'd be asked to find out what exactly you would like to do an internship on. And it's initially, told to you that you do not need to do it in the subject that you're studying, because most people want to explore beyond what the subject they're studying. So if they end up picking the same subject, they end up going in and learning whatever they would learn in the classroom too, unless they were picking a specific level of internship that was a specific topic in a subject. So they usually give us options like social internships and stuff that we would like to do that would help us boost our portfolio, but also to let us understand how it works. So I think personally, I was given opportunities to do social internships because I was really curious about how it works in public schools, how people are offered what they're offered, because I know that they're not offered a lot, but I want to know how it worked and how things worked. So I did an internship with the Nalanda Way Foundation, and I think I learned a lot. And in a way, I'm happy that I did not do a subject internship, because I guess what I learned was outside the textbook, and I'm glad that stays with me till now. So when they offer it, I guess it's a really good opportunity, because when you're given that as an option, you decide that you want to go for it, because it's not something you're usually offered. In normal schools, usually you would be given, if I'm a physics student, so if I'm a physics student, I'd be given an opportunity to visit a physics lab or something like that. So associations are related to subjects, and when you're given something that is not usually offered, that they say you can come and do an internship here, you'd want to try something new. And when that's given to you, you really learn a lot more, you expand a lot. And I think my perception has also changed quite a bit on how I look at things and all of that. So overall, I guess it really, really, really helps to have that. And as part of expert interactions, like I said, like Naveen uncle also said, when I wanted to become a musician, I really wanted to meet the best of the best. But it's not possible in the starting, because you need to work your way up for it. And in that way, I believe that the school really did everything they could for me. I had this awesome music teacher that was really, really good, and he stayed throughout the entire time. And I think most of what I learned is from him. And I did have a lot of expert interactions where I got to meet a few musicians and how it is for them in the real world, because I wanted to learn about how people work in the music world, how they interact, how they end up, making a living out of it. And I think that really helped me, the fact that the school had worked more on connections they could make for us to get to meet them. Because because I guess as the students who aspire to become someone like them, we're not really well known for them to be able to meet us. And in that way, if we're given the connections and the opportunities like Beyond It does, it really, really helps us. And it really becomes a big honor to get to meet them, because you get to learn from someone who's made and become the best in that industry. And I think that really helps too. Say.
I think what you said just really like bringing home what is the beyond brick and mortar school model is of Beyond 8. You really open your school up to not just like not all learning just happen in the classroom, but it happening in real life with real people, real community. And yes, there's no better way to learn how to be a musician than like, being with learning from a musician who's actually, you know, living and breathing this field, this industry, and how to make a living. You know, you don't learn these things from school. So I really, really appreciate what you said. I know Kurt's been waiting forever to ask his question. So now I'm going to pass this on to Kurt.
Well, Tara, we did have an episode maybe 4 years ago. I think it was called Beyond the Staff. I'll look it up after my question, and I'll put the link in the chat window. It was trying to get music tutors for those that normally wouldn't have them available. They maybe family couldn't afford music training and so forth. It was a fascinating show that we had. Again, I'll look that up. I've got a side comment and a small question, and then I'll get to my larger question. Naveen, Raaji, if I understood you correctly, you said 31 years. Right? You guys had just been getting out of high school at that time, or I'm wondering what led you to this vision so early in your careers. This is not my main question, but were you rebels back in the day, or were you just very dissatisfied with your educational experience, or were you mentored by someone who gave you this vision? What led to this early on? You know, for both of you co-founding this, because it was not probably obvious that this would be successful. It's probably not obvious that you'd be with us 31 years later talking about what's going on. So what gave you the courage? What gave you the insight? What gave you the confidence to do what you're doing? And then I'll ask my main question.
It's you know, it's some of it obviously through serendipitous moments, but we my mother was running a kindergarten and primary school. And Raaji and I used to actually work, believe it or not, in financial services in New York.
I'm a CPA. I totally understand. Okay.
The startup I was part of the founding team. We sold the company to Citigroup in 2003, and it was an all cash deal. A year and a half I had to work with Citigroup, and then all of us founders went in different directions. Raaji and I said we're going to go back to India because we had already traveled around the world, and money was now more a reason to go and work anywhere. I mean, when we came back, we both came to my mom and said, if you need any help, you need a security for the school, or you need some drivers for the school children's bus, or you need substitute teachers when teachers don't show up, we can do those things. And it started off very simply, no lofty goals. And we have been running that school. It's a full K through 12 school for 21 years now. And so in the course of that running that school, we kept we did a lot of action research and found that every school actually had a different philosophy. And there were subscribers to every philosophy possibly. Right. And so we said maybe we should come up with our own philosophy of what school education should be and expand, redraw the contours of what all can be called as part of school education. And I think somewhere along the line, we started hearing from learners, you're just occupying all of our time. Just give us more time to do things we like. And that's when it got to us that maybe we're in our eagerness to do better by learners, we have failed to ask them what they want. We're so eager to do all the things that we think they need. We have forgotten to ask them, what do you need? Or what gets your heart racing, right? So small moments, small conversations with graduate students who have progressed into college, they still keep coming back to us because the school environment was so fun and so exciting to them. They still, whenever they come back to India, come back to Chennai, their meeting point for all our alumni is our school. So when they come back, Raaji and I would say, spend 45 minutes with us, telling us what you're learning, what's happening in your world, teach us things we don't know. And through those conversations, I think somewhere serendipitously, we also recognized what we were not doing right by the learners while we were thinking we were doing right by the learners. Raaji, you want to add anything to it?
When you said rebel, Kurt, I think in some sense we both were rebels from childhood. So while all the serendipity was happening, I used to hate competition. I used to hate the fact that you need to, be privileged to get to the next step, and that your voice was hardly heard, and that you always had to just succumb to the requirements that society has on you. So there was a lot of that anger, as and maybe any normal teenager would have. And I think so, hence, when the impact is going to affect the learners, Beyond 8 is now 6 years old. So looking at learners being able to express their voice, being able to do their thing, so serendipitously or, vicariously, we are sort of, living our childhood back, that lost childhood, which is, lost to all the systemic pressures around you. So that gives you a different kind of joy.
So Naveen, it's 21 years, not 31 years. I misheard early. Yeah.
Yes, 21 years.
Okay. Okay.
HLC is 31 years old. The school is 31 years old.
Okay.
We joined it 21 years.
Okay. Okay. So I did hear correctly. It's just that clarification on that. Before I ask my main question, I have to ask another thing. I'm teaching a learning design or learning environment design in the fall again, and I wonder if you have a paper on the program, on the school, or two that you could share with me, or a video, or both, and I'll put it in the syllabus for my students to read and watch. And maybe invite you in to talk to my students, but we'll talk about that later on. It's all fascinating. I compliment you on what you're doing and what you're going to be doing in the future. Yeah, there's more I want to say, but when I read the website Beyond Us, Beyond 8, and when I read the bios of both of you, and this question is for all three of you. Okay, so I'm going to try and expand this a bit. I normally ask, or often I ask about the principles, and I think Naveen talked about first principles earlier. And if you look at the blog post, if you look at the website, there are 12 or 13 things that are obvious in here, and I'm going to read them off, and then I'm going to ask you to speak about two of them. Okay. So the 12 that come through in the blog posts, learning as design, personalization, purpose, learner agency, building learner confidence, maybe self-efficacy, choice, human-centeredness, challenge, fun, flexibility, freedom, the F words, fun, flexibility, and freedom, pursuing interests, learner determined. Young and I would add to that learner directed. I think Chris would too. So / directed. So those are the 12 / 13 odd principles that come out of there. I could write a paper about this. Maybe you have written one about it. If you have, that would be ideal for me to share with my R622 students. But I'll pick out two: purpose and learner agency. I wonder if any of you could speak to or provide an example of purpose or learner agency, or maybe even learner directing their own learning. That might be easier to do. So could you give us a scenario or a case or an example of it, example or two? And, any one of you can start, but we definitely need to hear from the one who's doing this as a learner. So go ahead.
I can talk about learner, Kurt. By the way, I can share the original paper and then the program design document as well. So we will be very honored and very happy to do that after the call, of course. One learner sort of comes to mind. So this learner, when she came to us, she was amongst the first learners in our Bangalore pod. We are in Chennai and in Bangalore too, both the cities in India. So this child came from a very rich background. So your early curiosity was shaped by spirited political conversations at home, her great-grandfather's global stories, MUNs, love for subjects like history, political science, English, what have you, right? And with so many interests, she actually struggled to pin down one path. And so much so that she created a website to help peers discover their own passion in a belief that maybe in that journey she will also find hers. right? So at Beyond 8, when she joined, she had this flexibility to pursue a wide academic basket. So math and for your point, purpose, flexibility is all going to sort of, come down into this story, right? So she had chosen, I think, math, sociology, biology. She was also auditing subjects like history, digital media. She took a lot of initiative. She led the newsletter initiative that was going on. She hosted events, mentored her peers. Then she also did a variety of internships, right from fact checking to creative learning to health materials for underprivileged. So she did a lot of these experiences with the guidance of her mentor, who was helping her connect all of these dots between her interests and strengths and this, real world exposure being peppered in. And and then she had an inspiring biology facilitator and who was able to, take her through these deep questions and interdisciplinary nature that biology offers. So that sort of helped her narrow down into biology as her next step. But she also benefited from the liberal university that she joined, which again gave her the freedom to explore. And today she is contemplating between biology and sociology as a major at the university, not just because someone assigned her a track, because she walked her path with that intention, curiosity, courage. So starting from dream mapping to exploring all of these, having inspiring facilitators, having a mentor connect those dots, having real world experiences. Today, she still may not be perfectly clear about exactly what she wants, but she has all the data points that she needs, along with, a lot of those soft skills that are built into her through leadership and agency that she took to actually explore and get to the next step. So if that case sort of, helps you just get a glimpse into the choices that children are able to make.
Tara?
Tara, why don't you share something, Tara, about how you learner agency, what it means to you and how you leveraged it?
Actually, I think so. First, I had net issues, so I'm not really sure exactly what the question was. So I just wanted to reconfirm that before
So
I.
how did you, for example, how did you, maybe Kurt, do you want to give it a shot again? Maybe I'll let you ask the question rather than explain.
Yeah, there are a number of principles that underlie the program, underlie the school, the philosophy, the mission, and so forth. And among them are providing students a sense of passion and purpose in their projects and giving them some empowerment to pursue their particular passions. How does this play out for you?
I guess it worked. I'm not really sure how to answer that question, but I think, yeah, I don't understand.
So for
You
instance,
want to
Tara,
maybe, yeah.
go ahead.
No, from dream mapping to the experiences that you have had, to the variety of things that you have had, how do you, how did you navigate that journey? What were the things
And
that stood out for you?
how much ownership you had in those decisions, how you were not, nobody was thrusting ideas. I mean, I shouldn't be putting words and thoughts into your head, but I'm trying to explain and expand the question so that you can answer it well.
So actually, when I came for dream mapping, it was Raaji auntie and a few more teachers. I was super scared. I think I was whipping up some random math questions on the side to think, oh my God, what are they going to ask me? I really cannot answer everything. What if I don't get this? And I think the first questions they ever asked me was 25 years from now, where do you see yourself? And I remember that because I mapped out this whole perfect little story that I know is never going to happen and nothing is ever perfect. I could get close to perfect. But I guess it sounds so perfect to me now. It's like a dream. It's just a dream that keeps, going there. And from there, this was 4 years ago. So 4 years now, it's been 4 years. I think my vision has truly changed. I might not want that same dream, but I still want something similar. But however, I also feel that though when you come with something to Beyond It saying this is what I want to become, they don't really say, oh, this is what you want to become, then you will only become this. I think they say, if this is what you want to become, we will help you become this. But if this is only what you want to become. And I think from what I wanted to become to what, like back then, and what I wanted to become now are totally two different things. Like 4 years ago, I would have wanted to settle up in the US. And now I might not want to do that. And I think what Beyond 8 really did was the fact that they don't force you to do anything. However, they do help give clarity on what you really want for yourself. And right now, I think up until 6 months ago, I had no clarity on what I wanted to do in college. I still do not. I can say that. But I think if there's anything as to an idea that I have right now, it would be because of how much counseling I had from Beyond 8 and how much I went with, I would say I went with a mind block that I will not do this. Like I did not want to study computer science. And now I come back with that out of that same meeting saying I want to study computer science. Because though I thought I could not do it and I just put my thing away from it, I realized that that's what I actually should be doing. And I think that's what I would thrive in. And I guess that kind of interaction is what one-on-one is required for. And I guess it really helped a lot. I don't think I could have figured it out any sooner if I hadn't had all the help. So yeah.
Hey, you answered it quite well, Tara. Give yourself a pat. Thank you. But Kurt, like Tara says, if you go back to again when I say things like first principles or when will learners learn? If you go back 2,000 years, the great Chinese philosopher Confucius said, learning happens when learners are seeking it. Not when we have great whiteboards in front of them, not when we our language skills, we have proficiency in the language or in the subject. It's, in the end, the learner has to be seeking it. That's the fundamental idea. So when Raaji talked about an example of a student, maybe I should talk more from a design perspective. So if a shoe doesn't fit, must we change the foot or change the shoe, redesign the shoe? So we started thinking about these things. If it's not, what are we trying to achieve here, right? And a learner agency isn't about just giving students a voice. I think it's about giving their voice some weight, some space, right? I think with the two fundamental things school education is taking away from learners is time and space. We're saying learn it now and learn it in this room from this textbook at the same time as everyone else, and possibly score the same marks as everyone else too, right? We're trying to create robots out of human beings. We actually must celebrate children's differences and recognize their uniqueness as valuable and not try to take that out of them. So we look to, straight from the word go, we have a fantastic pre-enrollment conversation, which is like an hour when all we do is we listen. We listen to the family and the child talk about all their current situation, their problems, their needs. And we try to go back to the drawing board and say, are we the right organization for this child? And we even look at the seating pattern in the meeting with the family. If the child is in the front and the parents are behind, we have a very high chance that family will value what we do. And especially if the father is in front and the mother has no voice and the learner is sitting behind, we almost tell them Beyond 8 is not for you. Because learner voice is so important. Because if the family doesn't believe that the learner's uniqueness is valuable, who are we to tell them otherwise? They're not going to listen to us anyway, right? So we're looking to see why is this family seeking us out? How much do they demonstrate their own recognition of their child's uniqueness and purpose and interests and passions? And then we say, if there is a fit, we tell them, there are things we can do and there are things we can't do. But what the things we can do are, how can we give you a mentor that can be your go-to person who's always going to think about how to support you, how to back you up, how to push you a little bit, right? But also give you all these opportunities to meet with interesting people that are and schedule your program in such a way you have a lot of time to do the things you're passionate about. Because as long as their interest is catered to, they recognize that they're learning things that perhaps are not in their interest, but will help them get ahead in the things they're subsequently looking to do, they commit to it a little bit better. So, we sort of flip that fundamental idea. Institutions sort of retrofit the learner into as per their convenience. I have a physics class at 9 a.m. You better get here. We have to keep all learners busy until 3:30. Otherwise, we don't know what to do with the learners. That's school education for you. Whereas we say, if you're done by 1 o'clock, leave, go do the thing that you want to do. If you're not available till 10 a.m., that's okay. Come at 10:30, get something to eat and come at 10:30. But let's schedule your time differently so that we can work around it, so that you have the agency to sort of put together an education that meets your interest, that furthers your interest, that helps you prepare for college successfully, and helps you sort of become an independent, self-directed learner. I hope that answers your question.
Really nicely. I think Lydia's got what might be the final question for today, and then someone's going to introduce the next show.
I told you the time gonna fly by. It's already like we're 5 minutes towards the end of the show. And yeah, there's another thing that really stood out to me as I hear all of you speak, is that you're not just asking learner like what do you want to become, but you at the same time you balance it out with exposure to things that they might not even know about. Like so it really allows learners to discover who they want to be through this different exposure. And Tara talked about this different internship and working with different experts that really enriched her horizon and perspective. So my last question is about assessment. It's not my favorite question, but I think the education system, we cannot, not talk about assessment. So I want to ask assessment in terms of how you assess your learners, as well as how you assess yourself. How do you know your model is working? We talk about the college enrollment, but what are other metrics that you use to assess yourself?
Again, maybe we both will answer. You want to go first?
I think the very first metric, even when we presented it to, I think one of the papers that we presented to Harvard, the presentation, we spoke about self-worth, Lydia. If our learners are able to preserve their self-worth through their Beyond Aid journey, and they are, and we are able to truly listen to their voice, where we are acknowledging their passion, and if a learner feels seen and valued, and then they will naturally begin to seek learning. They will have that self-efficacy because they were heard, they were listened to, they were given choice. And that's one of our success criteria, that, a learner's self-worth should improve from where they were into Beyond Aid and before they leave us. We also, and Tara spoke about it, right? We also look at decision-making capacity as a life skill. Our learners, because they are not going through preset tracks. So Tara kept saying about, I didn't know what questions will be asked of me in dream mapping. I didn't know how it will be to be in a class where you're actually seen. And I didn't know what will happen if my questions were answered, right? So that decision-making capacity, where they're curating their paths, they're going through all of these muddled thoughts in a safe space, without being ridiculed, without being pulled out, but actually being celebrated for those, without being, questioned on your choices, but, sort of, nudged in the right direction. I think that skill that they learn sets them up for the next step in college, because once you leave school, you're leaving that safe space, that space where you can fail, You can fail without any fear. You can fail and still know that there are people who care for you, who support you. And if we can set that for them, then we know that is success. So apart from colleges and all of that, self-worth, decision-making capacity, and the fact that they know that they have a safe space to come back to, even once they have left beyond it, I think that will, those are the things that we uphold quite seriously.
It'd be great to get some
Sorry,
resources
I didn't
from
realize
you
I
all.
was out. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, honestly, nobody I know likes assessments, not learners, not teachers, not even schools, right? In fact, I was once called to a conference organized by Cambridge, and they said, would you be a speaker? And I asked, would you mind if I spoke my mind? And they said, yes, as long as you don't say anything about Cambridge itself. I said, okay, but I am allowed to speak about assessments then, right? As Lydia wants to speak about assessments. Nobody likes assessments. Teachers don't want to do the corrections and take home work to correct. Students are nervous that they're going to be assessed through this one kind of lens that doesn't even identify their uniqueness in any valuable way. And schools don't like them either, right? So it's just it's a very lazy effort at identifying unique human beings. I think assessment bodies and institutions find comfort in standardizing these things, standardized sorting of human ability. But learning is not a sorting mechanism. It's a deeply human activity, if anything, right? If we weren't fixated on efficiencies in systems, we'd realize that testing assessments is just the way they are currently set up are just shortcuts, instruments that are trying to measure something quickly, but not really asking, are we measuring even the useful things that we want to assess, right? We don't look for nuanced, contextual, evolving human beings in front of us. We just orbit ideas of just in case education, just in case you need a little bit of geometry, just in case you need to know about volcanoes, just in case you need to know about all kinds of crap. Actually, learning happens just in time, not just in case. When learners are really wanting something, they'll go find how to learn it from. And today it's possible. You can learn it in 100 different ways at different times from different people in different on different platforms. So I think, when we reduce learners to just scores on a transcript, we're really telling them your worth is measurable, comparable, and conditional. I think that's such a lousy way to look at a human being. That's not even education at some level. I think that's just classification of human beings, right? It narrows identity instead of expanding possibilities for education itself.
So Naveen, I
That's my
couldn't
take on
resist.
assessments.
Naveen, I could not resist both of your comments about assessment. I just shared an article I wrote recently about not ranking students, not dealing with students in different ways. If you had a chance, you might want to take a look at that article. It just got published, I think,
Please do share.
I just sent that to the link. And here's another link that contains most of my recent articles on AI and personalization, a bunch of them. So thank you for sharing. So I just could not resist. Thank you.
Yeah, so this week we have
Thank you.
people from India with K-12, and last week people from India with higher education. So a little trend here. I think Lydia's got to wrap us up and head us into 2 weeks from now, because next week we have off for 4th of July. But thank all three of you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Naveen, Raaji, and Tara. This hour fly by so quickly. I feel this conversation can definitely continue, but we have to wrap up. And thank you once again for all of the amazing work you're doing. And so for the next episode, I don't know if our listeners still remember the two sisters from Wequel. The two sisters decided during the pandemic to take business in their own hands to create their own school. And this time we're going to learn from two of their educators from this unconventional schooling space. So if you're interested, please come not next week, the week after. We're taking a break the next week. So see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much, everybody. And see you next time.
Thank you so
you
much,
all.
Naveen.
Thank
Happy
you for this
4th of
See you next
July.
time.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.